Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Shelby Kennedy, and you're watching The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Man, so we get a lot of great musicians on the show, and Shelby, this may not come to a surprise. Once you've done this long enough, our musicians have sold over 1.7 billion records.
Oh my gosh.
But you start stacking them up, and you're like, these guys had 100 million, these guys had 60. You know, we had Susie Quattro on the show. She sold 60 million albums in her career, you know, and so all of a sudden you realize there's a lot of folks that have sold a lot of records over the years. J.R. Robinson, the most recorded drummer in history. Nathan East, the most recorded, bass player. Eric Clapton's bass player. All these different folks that have been on the show. And it just tickles me when we get a chance to do this. By the way, there's John jumping in, saying hi. So I'll let John introduce himself to you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Hey, Shelby, it's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too, John. Thank you for having me.
Since I'm just jumping in here, I just want to, for our listeners, in case Pete hasn't said so already, Shelby Kennedy is a songwriter and has done a lot of singing on records that we all know and love. And he's been around Nashville for a long, long time. And we wanted to mine your experience for all the great stories, and also to talk about the direction of the industry, the direction of, I think, the creative process. And get your thoughts on how those things are evolving.
We'll love to do that. And it, you know what? Right now, when you think of music business, I tell everybody, we all know the music is the creative part. You know too, John, you're a musician. And it's like we understand the creative, but the business part of the music business, we have arrived to where the business has to be just as, if not more creative than the music. So the good news about this for creatives, the music creators, they're built to go places where the voids are, opportunities. They create something out of nothing. I think our business is going to have to do the same thing. I think we've got to go places we are not. So the opportunity sounds weird, but opportunity is where it isn't. And that's where we're going. So it's fun to think about. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to brainstorm. It's a great time to be creative doing business.
That is very interesting. Let's go back, though, to just give our viewers some background. Talk about your career and getting started and going to Belmont and all the things that kind of shaped your career in Nashville.
Okay. Everybody's career path is a little different. Mine is, I'm a second generation to the music industry, actually. So I grew up in Nashville. My father ran Mercury Records here. He produced all the Roger Miller stuff, Tom T. Hall, Statler Brothers, Jerry Lee Lewis's country stuff, Reba's first, 5 or 6 albums. And so he was a player. You guys will know at least, I know one record you'll know he's playing on. He's the guitar on Pretty Woman. Yeah. So that's my father. He's a musician, Hall of Fame guy too. So being the producer, player, running Mercury Records, I grew up around a lot of artist development. And it just so happened these artists were writers as well. So growing up around that, I was comfortable around that. I never worked for my father, which I think was probably the right thing, or everybody thinks you're just, a dad's kid, right? But my path was, like you said, I went to Belmont University, and I interned at a publishing company called Al Gallico Music. He was an old iconic publisher, worked with greats, and he had great writers here in Nashville that ended up being excellent executives as well. One of those was Billy Sherrill, and Billy was a producer. He ran CBS Records later, but he was also at the publishing company when I got to intern there. And because of interning at that publishing company, Billy Sherrill was there. I got my first cut as a writer, even though I wasn't a signed writer. I was just interning, working at Al Gallico Music, but I got my first cut on Ray Charles, which was like, and that's just crazy. You can't plan that stuff, but yeah. Now it wasn't the single, but it was on a 45, as you guys know. That used to be the singles. Now I had the B side. The A side was Seven Spanish Angels, the duet that Ray Charles did with Willie Nelson, which was great. So I went for a really good ride, because the mechanicals were the same. Didn't matter which side you were on. So I got to do a little writing while I was there, and I started singing on demo sessions, just helping writers out, and as you are hanging around those types of creatives, you find yourself with lots of different opportunities, which I took advantage of. So I worked at publishing companies during that, singing, writing because I could. I enjoyed it. And so my path from publishing companies, I jumped to ASCAP. So I don't know if a lot of people have heard of ASCAP, but it's a performing right organization. And PROs, they pay songwriters and publishers for their broadcast performances. So I worked there as an executive for 10 years. And like I was saying, I gravitate towards the artist, writer type. So I worked with a lot of them there. The one feather in my hat, maybe from that decade, I was blessed to work around a lot of great people, but I was able to play Alan Jackson for a man named Tim Dubois, starting Heiress to Nashville, that helped him get his deal. So Alan goes from there into the Hall of Fame, So being around that was pretty special. And then from there, I went to Lyric Street Records when I left ASCAP, and I was director of A&R there. And another, fortunate situation, I had a friend, Jason Deere, that had worked with this trio called Shadaisy. So I brought them in, and they were double platinum for us. And so when we signed them, and we signed Rascal Flatts then, it was a special time to be at a label, especially Disney's country label. So I did that and sorry, I don't know if you want this much. I can just sit here and
yes, please.
Okay. So when I left, I stayed the first 4 years at Lyric Street, and on my way out of there, talk about the biggest blessing of all, I got to write with a buddy of mine, Philip White, and we wrote this song, I'm a Survivor, that Reba ended up recording. It was the title of her Greatest Hits, Volume 3 package. It ended up being the theme song to her sitcom. I think it was 6 seasons. It had a national television ad campaign for Whirlpool and Habitat for Humanity. So it's kind of like this trifecta just in that. And again, guys, I'm not signed as a writer. This is just me enjoying doing what you do, right? And God blesses you in the strangest ways. So I had done that. So
if you're going to write a record for Reba, what you didn't do on purpose, you would write I'm a Survivor, because I remember like when she became a new artist and she's like, where you been? I've been around forever, and so that is a good song title. Do you pursue your songwriting in that fashion? Like, this is something that I think will be sellable, or is it just more artistic and pure for you?
Man, that's a great question, Pete. So it's both. Sometimes you write for what you think the market wants to hear, and then sometimes you write just because you think that thought, If I was a signed writer and I was paid a draw and I've got to write so many and get so much activity, I'd probably be more geared about, is somebody going to record this? Is somebody going to record this? Is somebody going to record this? But for me, it's like, do I enjoy writing what this idea is? And I can tell you that particular idea, it's interesting. Me and a guy, Philip White, we write this, but it's a female song. We're a couple of guys, right? Which I think there's a lesson to learn in that. I try to tell writers to write from the listener's perspective, from the audience's perspective. We're guys. If we wrote a guy's song, it may not be believable to the female. I don't know, because we were making stuff up. But when we wrote a female song, we became the correct editor to see if that's believable or not, because the audience wants what's believable, not what's fabricated. I mean, that's the reality TV shows, right? It may be scripted, but people have to believe it's real to tune in. So that's the same thing with writing some of these songs. So back to what you were saying, you do a little of both. Okay. That song, definitely, we were thinking this is for a female to sing. So we're making clothes for a body we can't see yet, but we think somebody's going to wear it well. We didn't know it was Reba. And talk about it being sentimental. my dad gave her her first record deal.
Yeah.
This is years later, and there's something that's kind of divine about that too. So I don't know if that answered your question. I'm kind of saying both.
Hey, both is a good option. All of the above is good. And,
Yeah.
and when you get that deal and you guys do go on that ride also, I mean, you're being, we talked to Frank Stallone, and he talked about how he was the bigger success for a long time between him and Sylvester. But then Sylvester's rocket took off, and it just yanked Frank along with it, so that no matter what he did after that point, he'd always be, oh yeah, you're Sylvester Stallone's brother. So sometimes that rocket takes off, and it denies you your career as someone who writes great songs in terms of like having your own space, your own creativity. Did you feel like that? I mean, like your first song, you got Ray Charles making your first. Nobody gets to have that happen. That's just an incredible thing. Did you ever feel like some of that took away your ability to be the full person that you thought you might be in your youth?
No, you know what? I think it may be the opposite. I think it woke me up to say, you know what? Everybody is made differently. Everybody has different gifts. Everybody, gets to display them at different times. And I'm getting an early opportunity. Obviously, I'm not going to have that same cut next year and the year after and the year after, but it happens in its time, and it probably dials you into, guess what? We are all individuals with individual gifts. This is another conversation we could have. I think we're wonderfully defined by our limitations too. So I think, let's think of artists singing for a second. Let's pick on Willie Nelson. What a voice.
Yeah.
Can he sing like anything else? Probably not. George Jones. Could he sing like anybody else? No. I got to be around George Jones and Haggard. They were recording in the same space where I was working. Those guys envied each other. Haggard wished he could have sang like Jones. Jones wished he could have sang like Haggard. And I'm like, these guys are nuts. Like, are you kidding? They're incredible. But I do think that people that are like ridiculously talented vocally, can sing like anybody, they actually have the hardest time. It's almost like the more talented you are, the more focused you're going to have to be.
You just named 3 guys who had no chance of ever winning American Idol.
Yeah.
Who carved their own path. I mean, I think one of the other lessons that we learn as we talk to guys who've been around the industry like you have is that creators create, and then the path happens. And then if you're lucky, you get to say, oh yeah, I planned that. I saw that coming. Of course I did that on purpose.
You don't plan any of it, but you know what? The funny thing is you like back to the creative part again. If we were going to write a song, the 3 of us, for me to get you 2 guys interested in the idea, you've got to answer one question before you'll say, yeah, let's write it. And your question is going to be, have I heard this before?
Yeah.
Have I heard this idea written like this before? When you say no, then you're ready to go. Because the way we're wired, we will not go until it is a void. There can't be anything there. That's what motivates us to go. Now, that's hard to explain that kind of creativity to people, but when you're creatives, you kind of get it. You understand. It's like we don't go until it's not there. Yeah. So back to, they sing like they sing. They're not thinking they're going to be accepted by everybody probably, but they know there's not another them. I can say this about my father producing Tom T. Hall. Tom T. Hall was bringing my father songs, and they're great songs. But my father said, Tom, nobody's ever going to hear these songs unless you record them yourself. That's how Tom T. Hall became an artist. Because who's going to record those songs that only he could perform, relay in such a way? So it's you're right. They wouldn't have been American Idol, successes because there's something that's totally missing. So there's no measuring stick until they get there. Then there's a measuring stick.
So let me ask you that question from a different angle from what you're talking about in terms of like filling a void. Mm-hmm. John and I come to you right now. It's a different thing. You're an established songwriter. John and I are just Pete and John. And we say, hey, we have a song and we'd like to write it with you. That's a different proposition because you have bona fides. We have boners. You know, we don't have any kind of music at all. So at least not any pedigree that you would care to. How hard is it to get that Star Search kind of person, that American Idol person is like, I can write songs. I'd like to write one with you. How hard is that void or that bridge to cross for someone who's like you, was sold songs to Reba McEntire? You know?
Well, you know, it is. It's when people come with something. We're in the business of discovering, not creating. And I know I said creating a while ago, but as far as executives go, they've got to be in discovery mode for a talent. I couldn't sit here and say, you know what, I want to find a male artist that sings like this, looks like this, does songs like this, if I go and get that and create it, it's going to fail.
Mm.
The only thing that I can do is when that racehorse walks up to the barn, me realize that horse can run. And there's somebody that's going to recognize Willie Nelson can run. And then there's somebody that's going to think Willie Nelson can't even walk. And it's polar, you know, but those are the success stories. The ones that sell, you know, that sold platinum. You either hate them or you love them, but nobody's going, they're okay. You know,
bunch of other guys got it wrong.
And then how close to getting it wrong is someone like Shel Silverstein or Townes Van Zandt? These guys are super talented, but I would suggest in their very specific area, you know, because Western music, you know, you could tell a story, country music can tell a story, but if you're doing pop records, Townes Van Zandt's not going to sell records.
That's true. And you know what? It's art. It is art. And the marketplace decides the value monetarily. We all recognize art as beautiful. Songs, music that's going to outlive us all. So if you're creating something you know is fully baked, you've done your job. It's going to outlive us all. Now, is it going to be monetized in the 2020s, or is it going to be monetized in the 2030s, or I don't know. But yeah, people like Townes Van Zandt, and it's like brilliant. Guy Clark, brilliant. Dylan, but you never know what the marketplace is. So there's the art of writing songs, and you have to decide at that point, is it for the art or is it for commerciality? Because writing songs, commercial songs, that's a different art. I'll say it like this. I tell people like songwriters today, and sorry if I'm opinionated on songs of the day, because I think they're different than 20 years ago, the way that they're crafting them. Mm-hmm. But I think right now you can hear a lot of songs that may sound like 3.5-minute jingles on radio, and they're fun. They do their job. They're keeping me on the station while I'm in my car. I'm not changing it, so it's okay. Now, I think writers that only write those kinds of jingle songs, I compare that to dog paddling in the swimming pool. Now, the dog paddler, if they're in the Olympic pool, because that's the big pool, a lot of people think because they're in the Olympic pool, they're an Olympic swimmer, but they're really dog paddling, right? So there are swimmers that swim deep. The good thing about those writers that really learn the craft, the people you were just naming, if it's a Guy Clark, a Townes Van Zandt, I mean, those swimmers can swim deep, but every swimmer that swims deep, they can dog paddle, no problem. It's just the dog paddling writer that never learned to swim might drown later on if the market comes around needing deeper songs. So it's interesting to think about, but there's the art of writing songs, and then there's the art of writing commercial songs, and they can be different.
Yeah, you learned a lot about the art of writing commercial songs in your experience growing up and in the years you spent at ASCAP. And how has that influenced your process? I mean, do you hear that bell ring and go, oh yeah, okay, here's something that I think the marketplace will accept, or here's something that I think is filling that void?
Yeah, and look, I can be wrong. I mean, we all can be wrong. It's really just a matter of opinion at some point. But let's just say instead of songs, let's just say we all work in wood crafting. Mm-hmm. The three of us could go to a furniture store. We could walk in, and we could sit there and look at this couch. The first thing we run into, and I'd be, guys, look at the wood carving on the arm of this couch. Look at the grain, the stain, the way they cut. It's beautiful. And then this couple walks up and says, "Oh, yellow, white stripes. Let's get it." And you're like, did you notice the wood? They went for yellow and white. That's material. That's the cheapest thing probably on it. But
they bought the Panther coffee table with the piece of glass sitting.
yeah. So it's one of those things where we have to. It goes back to the audience. They're kind of going to dictate what's commercial. Mm-hmm. So it's all a guess. When I'm working with writers, or I think back to the ASCAP years, or I worked at BMI as well. I'm the only person that's been an executive in both of those.
Wow.
I know. So, but being in those worlds, you realize who can.
Those are two different spectrums in the music business too, or opposite sides of the spectrum.
They compete with each other, but they're all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I love both of those places. The blood is good with me because they are fierce competitors.
Okay.
But the thing about working with the writers, and identifying, look, a swimmer, somebody that can swim. Mm-hmm. But it goes back again to, well, of course they can dog paddle. So you just notice swimmers because they can do it all.
What if you're like the world's greatest dog paddler, though? Like, and this is in no way derogatory towards the person I'm going to mention, but Randy Newman can dog paddle the fuck out of the deep end of the pool and whoop everybody's ass, but he's super jingly.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I think he swims. I think he swims deep.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally think he swims deep. I just think he's down there dog paddling.
But seriously, those are my favorite writers.
Okay.
It's the deep swimmer. Like I could sit here and name in the country field, Bob McDill wrote all of Don Williams songs. He could write with a shovel. He could write with a pen, Don Schlitz, a shovel. But no, he can write with a pen. Or, it's like you just think of these writers that can write deep. Because there's something so simple, and it usually is so brilliant that it's forever and ever amen. But that guy can write deep songs, but it sounds, it's just understanding that the difference between writing, the art or commercially, it's just those guys. So Randy Newman, he's a great example, I think, Pete, of exactly what we're talking about. Swims deep, but can dog paddle and, like you said, knock you out at the surface. Just he's great, Yeah.
I got to mention too just because Howard Hessman died the other day. He, that jingle for WKRP is that guy clearly is a jingle writer as well. But that song will stick in my ear to the day I die. Like it's just so perfect. And I don't care that it's dog paddling. I just love to sing it. I love.
Randy Newman wrote that?
No, he didn't write that. No. It's another guy. His name was like super simple, like Tom Smith or something like that. But
it is brilliant.
The lyrics are great. The tune is great. And it's a jingle, but I love it. I love that song.
Yeah, well, there's something to say. There's lyrical hooks in songs, and there's musical hooks. And then I could say, hey, Pete, how much is that song really worth? Because it's staying in your head. How many times are you streaming it up here?
Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion where everybody's talking about the value of copyrights. And the truth is, as a writer, you'll never get paid enough of what it's worth. You really can't. And you can't value that like the person that hears the song one time and it stays in their head versus the person that heard it 10 times and never think about it. Well, how much is that worth? I mean, it's different. Music is totally different. It's hard to quantify the value of a copyright. That's just another discussion, but I mean, it really is, it's everybody's talking about it, but the beauty of it, it's going to outlive us all. Whatever you write, it's going to outlive us all. There's value to that, Yeah.
On the topic of quantifying, though, I'm a survivor being a theme song. I imagine. I think we imagine, but I'd like to hear, not necessarily specifics, but help us, put some meat on the bones that we're all sort of intuiting that a theme song really fetch as a writer a nice living for a while. Is that true?
Yeah, it can. And I'll tell you, even in that deal, I don't know how much I should go into an actual. I did some things creative to make that actually happen.
Okay.
Because it really wasn't. It wasn't exactly trying to make as much as I could with it. We had a hit country single that was going to come out, and we knew it was going to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell you what I can on it. Who knows? I may tell you all of this, but nobody get me in trouble. But so we write the song, and this is a great story. So we actually, my wife, Sherry, has a friend, Cindy Owen. She worked for Reba, and Reba was in New York doing Annie Get Your Gun on Broadway. The song was on hold by Martina McBride. It came off hold. I go home that day, and Cindy Owen, our friend, is at the house, and she found out it was off hold. And she's like, I want to send this to Reba. Like, okay. So she overnights it to Reba on Friday. Reba hears it on Saturday and wanted to put it on hold, wanted me to take it to Tony Brown, the producer's house, and put it in his mailbox on Sunday because Monday they were going to cut it. So guys, from Friday to Monday, it's pitched, heard, held, and cut. Okay? So it happens that quick. Then we find out, hey, they're doing this pilot show for Reba. We didn't even know about that. So then it turns into, okay, this is cool. Now they would like to, purchase the theme. So, they'd like to own this. And that's where it's like, well, for us to sell that, we're actually selling a hit country single, and that's way too much for a pilot of a show, So I may get off the track here and telling you the full details of how it happened, but we had people kind of working it. They didn't really want to use it because they would like to own it. Mm-hmm. So we had to start.
It was encumbered.
We just had to figure out how to navigate because can we give them an incentive to use it?
Okay.
So we had to get creative with a sync license. And usually, guys, a sync license, that's a negotiated term between the publisher and the user, for using this in moving pictures, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to negotiate that. And then you have performance royalties from that ASCAP I told you about, or BMI. So you got two pools of money to start talking about, and that's where we had to get really creative. But for a lot of people, most of the money might be in the sync fee. That's where most of it could come because, like, for the national television campaign jingle, they wanted to use it for Habitat for Humanity Whirlpool. That's another thing too. Now that was a sync agreement they had to get in order to do this, television campaign. So yeah, that was healthy. So those are licenses that are in place, but what I wanted to do and succeeded, I guess, blessed that this happened. We were creative enough to where I wanted to make sure they didn't replace it in season 2 if it made it.
Yeah.
Or season 3 or season 4. And they never did because it ended up making sense for them to continue. So it worked.
It was healthy for everybody.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a brand, because there's the song and it's associated with the show. And, if theme song changes too much, that may not be a good thing. I don't know. But it was fortunate for us. But your sync fees, a lot of people are trying to get that because it became the new radio for some people to get their stuff in television shows or film. Now new artists want it so bad for exposure. Now they're really dropping the price just so they can get the exposure, which, that's kind of the dilemma,
Yeah.
It's interesting too. One of the other aspects about the industry and how it's moved now is the influencer aspect. So let's say that John is great at making playlists on Spotify. And if he adds your song to his playlist, it's going to get played a lot because he's the big king of song. So you may have the ability to curate, and you have to pay John to get on his list in some way. And so there's another mouth in the chain of people getting fed off of the songs that are written. And it's just fascinating when you think about what it means to get, and I don't know, like, Paris Hilton to make a song a playlist and put a song on it. What does it take to do that? Who's advocating for you for that? Because it's really hard to, the market, I think, is really peaky in terms of everybody's going to hear a Taylor Swift song. But if you're 3 orders below where Taylor Swift is, it's tough to get played anywhere. I mean, the radio is locked up with pre-programming and everything. I mean, it's really, really tough to break out.
It is. And now I worked at TuneCore. That's something I didn't get to yet, where I was able to establish and build out the entertainment relations for TuneCore, which is independent digital distributor sending music to the Spotify's and the Apple Music and Amazon and, Google Play at the time and, YouTube, all that stuff. So the music goes out. Now, I got to be honest with you, Pete. I never was working with anybody that was buying their way onto a playlist. Seriously.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't see that, didn't hear about that. And I will say this is the one thing probably for everybody in modern music business. Everybody has their own social media. There's no excuse for anybody to feel like they don't have a vehicle to garner attention because they've got their own social media. Now, if they don't have an audience, why is that? Either they're not working hard enough to build it, or let's be honest, maybe they're not that special. I don't know. But I'm just saying right now, the social media turned into direct marketing that at a label, we dreamed we could have had direct marketing. That would have been awesome. Well, now everybody can. There's no excuses. It's either not working hard enough or maybe not special enough, So that's kind of how I look at that. So if I'm living and dying by being on a playlist, I'm not.
You're dying.
I'm not living enough. It's
Right.
like there are other places to live. I do want the playlist. I do want curators and editors. I want all of that. But if I have an audience, look, that's what's happening with major labels right now. You know what? The independent artists, they got to start growing up on their own, because major labels right now, when I was at a label, we pulled artists up, right? We developed, pull them up. Now major labels, they just pull them over.
Yeah. Who's got development budgets anymore?
Exactly. You got to get tall enough for them to pull you in. The major labels are in harvest mode, right? So they'll pull you in if you get tall enough. But if you get tall enough, you may not need to go in.
You may not need them. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're kind of it's a wonderful place for independent artists to have their own tools if they have their work ethic in check and they're special enough. This is all going to work out good. So anyways, I'm very optimistic about how the industry is evolving for the true special creatives that have the work ethic. And I tell every manager this, anybody, if they're outworking their artist, run. Right. Don't work with them, just run. I don't care how talented they are. If you're outworking them, you probably don't need to be working with them. Wow. So this is not a place for people to think I'm that special. They'll just come to me. Yeah. Everybody's in discovery mode, but you got to make yourself discoverable, be under
and there are a lot of people out there being discoverable.
Yes, because you know what? If you're not tall enough yet, somebody else is.
Yeah.
So there's somebody that's ready right now. And then there's some that, like I said, they don't need to go into the major. They can do it on their own, and it's a different scale. I mean, you can go into a major label and look, I got to have lunch with a guy one time, major label, was the attorney that did all the deals, West Coast. And I asked him, I said, I'm just curious, what percentage of artists are really profitable and that you're signing? And at the time, it was like, it's 5%.
Yeah.
And they're carrying,
the rest of the label.
Yeah. And I was like, well, now here's what I know from being around a label. When it is great, it is awesome. It is unbelievable. When it doesn't work, it also is unbelievable. Like, in the bad ways. Like,
yeah.
And it's like it's either one or the other, but when it works, it's incredible. It's awesome. And then you're back to what you're talking about, the millions, like it's incredible to see all that. But then for every one of those you see, there's lots you never got to,
5%.
That's what it was. That's what it was then. That's been a while back. So I don't know. I mean, now the business has changed too, because the 360 deals and there's live, selling tickets is what it's about for most of them. It's, the music, the recording, that's the commercial.
Yeah.
The business is in the merch and the ticket.
Yeah.
Boy,
how things have changed.
Yeah. Seriously.
Used to, it was like, go kill yourself on the road and promote the sale of these units.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, just get these units wherever you get, whatever form.
Yeah.
Sell the ticket.
And put butts in the seats.
Exactly. Yeah.
The thing about your background that we're really intrigued by, those is we see all the failures in the music business that come because a guy had a great creative something and then just couldn't navigate the business part because he didn't have the background, didn't have the knowledge, got a bad record deal and all of those things. And having grown up around the business, from seeing your dad's perspective and just seeing a global view of the music business made your, I think, path very special in a way that allowed you to not necessarily find success, but avoid pitfalls.
Yeah, that's kind of a nice way to put it, I guess. And I don't know if I thought about it so much, in all seriousness, because I do know the people from talking with them at ASCAP or BMI, the people that are scared to do anything, so they don't, and they go nowhere. So at some point, you got to move. You got to have some faith. You do have to pray about things. I'm sorry, that's me, but you got to have some faith, and you got to go, because nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? So a lot of these people would just be in park. But the funny thing is, and you guys probably know this, I think I'll credit my grandmother, and my mom would say, look, you are who you hang around with, right? We've heard it since we were kids. Mm-hmm. And so if you're in a fairly good crowd that's got values and the work ethic's good and they care and they're compassionate and they can even be competitive and compassionate, it's all good. Yeah. Your level, you raise up and you're good. It's funny. I don't see good people hanging around bad people. I don't see bad people hanging around with good people.
Yeah.
It takes care of itself. And I don't think you have to think about it. I know it sounds weird, but it's just kind of true. You just gravitate towards same values, same ethics, same interest, and if somebody really is, when you get a bad feeling about somebody, you get gone. It's like, I don't need to, but I never
know what's good for you.
Yeah. Well, and I never really thought about that seriously. But it's
a profound piece of advice that I don't know that we thought we'd get from a songwriter necessarily, but really, I mean, it touches every piece of your soul and your creativity. Yeah.
No, it does. And even when you're in the co-writing situations, it's it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing in Nashville where I am. The competition can be maybe considered fierce, but you would never know it because, what's funny, when my friend has success, I kind of have success too. That's what it feels like. And when I do, they do. It's like, I've got brothers. They've had success too. I'm the youngest of three. I'm the scraps of my family, But 3 years older than me is Gordon Kennedy. He wrote Eric Clapton's "Change the World," Grammy Song of the Year. And
that's a good one.
And some Bonnie Raitt stuff, and he's out. He played with Frampton. Me and another guy helped connect them, and then I got another brother in the middle, Brian Kennedy. Well, he wrote American Honky Tonk Bar Association, Beaches and Sound, and Good Ride Cowboy, a bunch of Garth hits. And we all did our own things separately. But what's great is when they had that success, I did too. And so it's like we weren't sitting there on top of each other. We do things differently. That's brothers, but it's also friends, because in the industry, all these friends and colleagues and coworkers, they're brothers and sisters too.
Yeah.
That's the thing I think that Nashville has quite the magnetism for. It pulls people because we're getting people from New York, LA, we're getting people from everywhere, and they don't bring the dog eat dog ethic here. They come here and adapt or adopt. Like I said, it's almost family. We're all competitive because look, if somebody's winning, we're all winning. Industry's moving forward. That's good news. If we're all losing, it's a bad situation. But something's number one next week, so we'll all be happy.
Yeah, we had Adam Shoenfeld on last week, and he came from New Jersey of all places. But he is the vibe that you would associate with Nashville. That brotherhood attracted him as well, and has done very well for him. And turns out we have some mutual friends, and of course we do, because like you said, good attracts good.
You're right.
So what a place, and what an upbringing you got to enjoy. And I think that if we look back at that, and you look at how your creative process has evolved, and because you've been a collaborator with people, talk about where you are now, like at the point of your career and life, and how your creativity is different now than it was, in years past.
Yeah, no, great question. I'm right brain, left brain. I was sitting there talking about the brothers. I'm probably, in my family, maybe my father is a little bit, but I may be more than him, right brain, left brain. I don't know. So I've gotten a belly full of the experiences that a lot of people might want, right? So it's not, I think all those experiences are not for me to hoard and just say, hey, I had these, too bad for everybody else. My experiences are for everybody else that I can work with. Seriously. I'm like, if I can turn on some light switches, I am all about that. And I always have been. I feel like my career has graduated to where I've always felt like the map at the mall. You are here. Where is it that you want to go? Oh, well, here's your, because I can see this mall maybe better than you can. You're just in this one hallway looking at the map, So if I can help people navigate a better route, that I think that's why I have the experiences I have. And I feel like, spiritually speaking, I think that's what I'm kind of called to do. So that's where I am in my career path. It's put me in places to work with all types, but get people to understand what they never would have understood until we spent some time together. I talk a lot in analogies to give people an idea of what they, what it's like, what they really need to see. And again, that's fun because I see a lot of people not being as creative as they are. And that's the one thing that kind of drives me crazy is when people come in, and not to get sidetracked, but it's like people may sit down and they may talk about what they're trying to do in front of them. And I'm trying to get them to see a bunch of dots that they could connect. And they wake up and look for 2 dots. And I'm like, you got way more dots than what you're looking at. And where most of it usually is, I tell people this, like when you look over your shoulder at your career path to this point, you walked on a lot of bricks to get here. A lot of people think their past is supposed to be their past. And I'm like, no. Those bricks back there, that brick back there may be the one that's supposed to be right in front of you to walk on. I think our career paths are not always linear. Yeah. I actually think they're circular, right? There's a reason why you knew those people at that time, because we're coming into a period where this has a different, power to it or purpose to it. So in my career, I'm trying to help everybody do, I don't know if you guys were sports, but that was another thing too. When I was in college, I was an assistant football coach at the high school I went to. They kept me there to coach after I graduated. And there's that part of me that even though as a player, you really know your position, you know what to do, you can do, but when you're in a coach kind of situation, you get a different viewpoint.
You have to see everybody's position.
And then you can communicate it better because I know what it's like to stand in the shoes and play that position. But I didn't know that I'm doing this because this position has to do that,
Yeah.
And you start seeing, and it's almost that way with the industry as it evolves. And I do think I'm farsighted. I'm not nearsighted. I'm looking at the horizon because, again, we're wired to see the void. We're going somewhere we're not. So have to be farsighted in this deal. We can't just be nearsighted. If so, yeah, Pete.
We had John Mosley on the show. He was a coach. He still is a coach at a junior college in Southern California, and he was on one of those Last Chance U seasons. And he's a basketball coach, and he's full of inspiration. He's full of scripture, and he's screaming at these guys and imploring them to be a better version of themselves. And of course, they get head down and they don't want to do it. And he's like, "I believe in you guys more than you. Like you guys don't know how close you are. You don't know what this path is and how hard you have to work to get there." And you just explain it to them. And then some of them start to realize, like, oh my God, this guy's actually on my side. That's why he's pushing me so hard in this direction. But we're all too dumb in the moment to like realize that this guy loves you, and believes in you and your ability. And that
you have the stuff.
Yeah, he's like, "You've got this stuff. I've been down this path. I know these bricks. Will you stop and look at this one? Spend time, polish it up. Go see Rick over there. Go see Tina over there. You have to talk. You have to do these things along the way, but I believe in you more than you do right now. So please, work on this path. Let's do this."
And down the road, the light switch may actually come on for somebody that didn't see it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'll be like, but what's funny is I bet you Mosley one day will run into that person and it'll be probably 8-10 years later.
Yeah.
And that person's going to say, when you told me boom, 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 I get, because that happens all the time with me.
Mm-hmm.
I have people come back and say, you remember when you told me such and such? I'm like, no.
No. Did I say that?
But it meant something and it stuck and somehow it applied. And that's when you feel like it's not me telling them. I think I'm probably a tool and more of a divine,
And the other thing with that path, in this case, these guys all want to become professional basketball players. But John's like, yeah, maybe, that's a long, long way. But we are going to get you an AA degree. We are going to get you on to the next college. Going to do my damnedest to get that paid for. And what you find out is that path that these guys are on is not a path to the NBA. Maybe one of them every 5 or 10 years, but most of them are going to go on to do something else. And he's still they're still on that path, but they're just too short-sighted to see it.
Yeah. No, the divine plan, it's like you can't see that in the moment, but you will later. That's another thing I tell everybody when you look over your shoulder at all the best things that happen in your life. None of those things were planned by you. Yeah. None of them were planned by me.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff I planned, we are not going to talk about today. I don't want to do that. So but it really is that way. It's like, it's just, you live through it and clarity does come.
I don't want to miss the opportunity to highlight a lesson that you're giving us all right now. And that is that your purpose is often bigger than the task that you think is your purpose. A lot of people get bogged down into, well, I came here to be a songwriter and I'm going to write these songs and I'm going to make sure that my hit, and they don't realize what greatness they're creating in the world by enabling others to, get the opportunity to collaborate, get the opportunity to learn lessons, get the opportunity to see the world a little differently. And it seems like you somehow were in the experiences that you've had, they developed an insight in you that allowed you to allow for that purpose and for that satisfaction. Because a lot of people maybe have done some great things for others like you have no idea and don't give themselves the credit and think, well, boy, did I fail at being a whatever I thought I was going to be. But without allowing yourself to succeed at this thing that you didn't realize was your purpose, that was to help develop and be a catalyst for others.
Let me share this with you if it's okay. So this is something I love telling people, I was interviewing, or I was being interviewed by a student at Belmont University for class, and they got to that question at the end of the interview, how do you define success? He was like, well, rewind back to sitting with Billy Sherrill, that guy I was telling you about at Gallico, the producer. I'm about to graduate college back then. And Billy says, what's bothered you? And I said, I'm about to graduate and I don't know what I want to do. Like, I really don't know what I want to do. And he goes, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, Billy, you're back in the studio producing records. He said, okay, I'm producing records. He said, don't forget I'm a studio pianist. I'm like, okay, piano player. He goes, don't forget I'm a publisher. You're working here, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. He goes, don't forget my BMI awards. He's got I can't remember how many. He's got the record for the most BMI awards as a songwriter. Don't forget that. Don't forget I'm running CBS Records. He's going through all this, and I'm almost saying, Billy, you jerk. Like what? But here's what I think. This is what I walked away with. If he had decided exactly what he wanted to do, there's a whole lot he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
That's the whole deal. And so back to this student interviewing me from Belmont, and here's what I wanted to share, is what success really is.
Yeah.
She said, how do you define success? And I'm like, for the first time, I'm like, wait, I got this. I said, God gave you a toolbox, gave me a toolbox, gave everybody a toolbox. I got different tools in mind than you do. I've got a hammer. You've got a jackhammer. You've got a sledgehammer. At some point, somebody needs a picture hung on the wall. Hey, I've got a hammer. I don't think we need the sledgehammer, the jackhammer. It's knowing when to use the tool for the right job. But success is when you open up your toolbox one day and you look in and you actually picked up every tool that was in your toolbox. That's success. I don't know I've got different tools now. Maybe I was building a birdhouse or a playhouse or a tree house or a house or a building. I don't know, but I'm handling what was given to me. Why would I be given something I don't pick up? So when you find people that only want to be the artist, and it's like, maybe that's the hammer, and like they keep picking it up and they keep picking it up and one day they're like, I don't have anything to hammer. And I'm like, you never picked up the saw that you have in your toolbox. You could have, and it's like, so it's that tunnel vision, not acknowledging what you've been given, just tunnel vision for one tool. We're more special than that. Now, somebody may just be given one tool, may be, but success, I think, and I hope this is making sense. It's that people that do focus and think they failed at the hammer, they will not fail at the hammer if they're picking up everything else, because there's a reason why they have to pick it up and use it for the season that they use it and whatever way that they use it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely makes sense. And I don't want to.
I'm still chewing on it. I'm going to chew on it a while.
You chew. I'm going to talk about amazing songs, amazingsongs.com. Let's talk about that, because this is really the ultimate. Like, this is a culmination of all the different businesses and aspects of the business that you've been in. And as you said earlier, you're creating something to fill a space. Let's talk about Amazing Songs, Amazing Radio, the whole amazing family.
Well, thank you, Pete. Yeah, Amazing Radio, the company that I'm working for, it's a UK company. It helps, artists be discovered. So it's done really well since 2009. They moved into the U.S. and we are building out Amazing Radio, a U.S. station. So that's happening. The one thing you mentioned I wanted to share on this was Amazing Songs is another platform that we have built. And the way people go to it, it's amazing-songs.com. That's how you go to it. It's a professional, private site, but writers can use this. Basically, the easiest way to understand this is it's like a Dropbox for writers and publishers to store their work tapes, demos in their private locker. But what we do is we allow executives to get in the back end and see whatever the writer or publisher wanted to select as discoverable. So I can have a bunch of work tapes, but I got this one demo I would love for people just to hear. I can make that listenable for the executives that are in the back end.
Right.
It's not publicly released. It's not in the marketplace. So everything retains its first use right. So people can't just record it. And the only people that are going to hear these songs they're executives that are being vetted by us. They're either A&R or producers or publishers or ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, PROs, people that need to be able to discover the writers or discover the songs, because here's the problem. This is the void. What are the odds that a songwriter lives in a music center that has PRO office, that has publishing companies, that has labels? So there's great writers all around the world, and there's no bridge to connect to them unless they can travel to a music center and then probably do one of the impossible things, get meetings, So this is something for them to be able to get their things where they can be discovered right where they're at. So this is a need. And I think it's a bridge for all of those. And it's a shield for the executive, because they can't sit there and just get like people just call them, have you heard my song? Have you heard my song? Have you heard my song? It's like, it's got to be set up that's very executive friendly, which I'm opinionated about that because I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also very writer, oriented, because I've been there. And publishers have songs they can't even pitch anymore. They're going to haunt them till the day they die. And so those songs need to be discoverable, because I think they're going to get recorded. So we built this platform, amazing-songs.com, and it's like people can go get their locker, store their stuff there. So it's basically storage with incredible opportunities. So that's what it is. And it needs to exist. And so we've brought that to fruition, just now starting with it. So I hope that made sense.
Yeah, this is bringing creativity to the industry, like you said before. I mean, really, the challenges that have existed in the music business, whether you're an executive or an artist or a writer, they're all the same. The dynamics are a little different, and you're just trying to make it so that you're bridging those gaps that have always been. You've always had the gatekeepers in the industry. You've always had the artists that have been catapulted because they were super special and deserved it. And you've always had the songs that needed the artists to record them and the executives to get behind them so we could all hear them. This is just a different way to do all of those things that takes advantage of the technology that we have now.
Yeah. And it's funny, as an executive, I think back to, I was at a place where I had to depend on somebody referring the good writer to me, or somebody bringing me that song. Mm. And what are the odds of that? I'm like, let's go back to another analogy, but it's like if you're going to go to the mall to buy clothes for me, good luck getting something that fits and something that's in the style that I would wear. But now, if you could bring the ball to me, let's do that.
Yeah.
Because if I can be at the mall, I'll buy stuff.
Yeah.
But what are the odds that you pick the perfect outfit? And that's what people are doing when they pitch a song. They're hoping it's the perfect thing that fits at the perfect time. But if it's on my terms as an executive or producer or A&R, okay, now I can go, I'm in discovery mode. I can discover stuff. And it's like, that will fit. Somebody would have never known that would have fit. So it's kind of back to that again. It's like we've got to get things set up to where things are discoverable, not depending on a referral, because that means my success is at the mercy of that. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's fantastic. I don't want to take all of your time because I know we're going to run short on time here. But was there anything else, John, that you want to ask in closing?
I would like to ask that we follow up with you at some point, see how you're doing. And then maybe we do this a couple of times a year, because I'll say selfishly, I've enjoyed this conversation so much and I've gotten so much out of it. And it's not all music business. It's life philosophy. It's, like you said, the definition of success, you just took that and shined a whole different light on it, or put a whole different lens in front of it. And I'm going to chew on that for a while, and I'd like to chew on it for a little while, and then maybe talk back with you in a couple of months and see how you're doing and see how amazing-songs.com is doing, and just kind of check in.
That sounds great. And guys, I've really enjoyed this. And John, if you're chewing on a wall, I hope you don't throw up. But guys, this has been fun. I love to talk shop.
Okay, good.
And all this. So I really enjoyed the time. I really did. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say our guest today has been Shelby Kennedy. I hope I don't embarrass you by saying the great Shelby Kennedy has been our guest today. And it sounds like we'll be our guest in the future a few more times, hopefully, pretty frequently. So thanks a lot. And I hope everybody enjoyed it.